Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. HTM here with a PTS update talking about the damage shield sets in the Elder Scrolls Online, how those are being changed for the Harrowstorm DLC. I'm talking about the recent Iceheart set nerfs, as well as the new monster set, the Mother Ciannait set. I think the question a lot of people have regarding these and the damage shield set changes is, are these still viable? Are these useful for running solo content, or should you just drop these damage shield sets altogether? Plus, there are other damage shield sets in the game. Things like the Combat Physician set, which we want to know, are those maybe more viable versus Iceheart? Or basically, what would I recommend for a damage shield set moving forward in the Harrowstorm DLC? So I want to look at all of those options in this video quickly. And I want to talk about where they are at in terms of viability for things like solo builds, soloing world bosses, soloing dungeons, that kind of thing. And then I do want to make some suggestions to the developer team as far as adjusting the strength of these sets, because I don't think they're quite where they need to be yet in terms of balance. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about, let's go ahead and look at the first set that got changed, which is the Iceheart set. Now, previously, this did have a much larger damage shield size. It was something like 8,600 damage shield for 6 seconds. It did more frost damage as well. That got nerfed. And they also nerfed the cooldown of that set, though they did step back on that nerf, and it now has a 6-second cooldown like it always has. But you can see the damage shield here is much, much less. 5,000 damage shield for 6 seconds. So we want to take a look at that Iceheart set first with the new 5,000 damage shield and see, will that even last? Like, is it even worth it? So here it's up. It went down in about 3 seconds that first time. Let's go ahead and try to proc it again here. You can see I'm taking a lot of damage. It does proc, but then it goes down almost instantly that second time. I'm going to try to proc it again. Try to keep my heals up. I am on a Magicka Templar, which is a very good solo class, but as you can see, the damage shield is gone very, very quickly. It's up, it's down in about 1 second that time. And this is a great solo class, you guys. Magicka Templar, very good at soloing world bosses. And as you can see, make sure my buffs are up. It procs, lasts maybe about 3 seconds that time. But I think it's pretty obvious to see the 5,000 just by itself is pretty lackluster. There, it's gone in about 3 seconds as well. So let me go ahead and reset the fight here. So that's with the new base value of the Iceheart set, that 5,000 damage shield. Here we go. So yes, 5,000 damage shield for 6 seconds. On average, I mean, it's going to depend obviously on the encounter, but something like a world boss where you're taking more damage, this might only last a few seconds. So pretty underwhelming. Of course, it is just a 2-piece set. I mean, you do have to consider that you're only losing 2 pieces of gear for that 5,000 damage shield. But I think by itself, it's not really worth running without some additional help here. Now, I do want to compare it quickly to the new set, which is Mother Ciannait. In case you're wondering, well, should I get that set instead? Is it better? Well, no, it's not better at all. It has exactly the same damage shield, 5,000 damage absorbed for 6 seconds. It just has a different secondary effect. You restore 600 magicka when that's broken. Which, I mean, that's not a bad secondary effect. It can be useful for some builds. Here's the effect. You can see when I channel either a heavy attack or something like that, it does come up. So something like sweeps on a Magicka Templar is going to be very good for proccing that. It's going to have basically the same issue. It's only going to last a couple seconds here when you are taking damage. So there it lasted about 3 seconds. Essentially the same as Iceheart because, of course, it is the same 5,000 shield as Iceheart with the same 6-second duration. So we can see the size is a little bit underwhelming on the shield as well. It's going to wear off very, very quickly. So then what can you do about this? Well, in some builds, I think, this type of damage shield set is going to be okay still because you can amp it with other things. One thing that's very easy to do is just to change your main hand enchant on your front bar. Instead of having something like Absorb Magicka or like a Shock enchant, what you can do is actually put a Damage Shield enchant on your main hand. Of course, I'm talking primarily about soloing here, where we're not concerned as much about losing damage or DPS. We're really just trying to stay alive in some kind of challenging encounter in ESO. So we can put on something here like an infused trait on my front bar staff. And with that damage shield glyph, you can see I get over 4,000 damage shield for 5 seconds. The name of that enchantment, that's the hardening enchantment. So basically it's a automatic damage shield that procs from your main hand weapon. So adding something like this to your existing, Iceheart set, this is going to help quite a bit. Because you're almost doubling the size here. You can see it's lasting almost the full duration. What's also nice is you can kind of stagger these, so I can have one damage shield, then I can proc the other damage shield from my staff. I proc the Ciannait set again. I can reproc the enchant shield. So you can see my overall health is staying topped off a lot better just by changing out my glyph, my front bar glyph here. Again, I'll show you, I can kind of stagger it. Have my damage shield enchant, and then have my Ciannait. It's still, it's not as strong as it's been in the past, obviously. But in terms of the damage that I'm taking, this is much more manageable. This is going to be a lot more successful in trying to solo anything. So that's a good option, I think. If you were concerned, like Iceheart's not going to do enough of a damage shield, then definitely you can combine it with something like a damage shield enchant, and that'll work pretty well. Something you can also do that's going to help a lot is, depending on your champion points, you can focus your points on this tree. In the Lord tree, we have a CP node called Bastion, and this increases your damage shield size. And you can see the more points I put in here, like about 23 points, I get a 10% bonus to my damage shields. Then I can go even further up to 20%. So to get 20% increased effectiveness, I only need 56 points. And then I wouldn't go up all the way to 100, but you can scale it up maybe as far as 81 points. That will give you a 24% increase in your damage shields. So let's go ahead and do that and see how the survivability changes now that I've kind of moved my champion points around. So my 5,000 damage shield, either from Iceheart or from Ciannait, that's going to go up to about 6,000. And then that main hand glyph, the hardening enchant, that goes up another 1,000. So that's 5,300 point damage shield for 5 seconds. So I've done a good increase in size here. Let's go ahead and just try this one more time. So this looks better to me. You get, once they're both procced, you get a pretty sizable shield, you can see there. Yeah, and these are definitely lasting basically the full duration, the full 5 or 6 seconds of the shield, now that I have those points put into the Bastion CP node. So much, much better in terms of survivability. Now, do I think that's ideal? Not necessarily. Fair that a player would have to put 81 points. I don't know how great that is in terms of balance, because not everybody is going to be able to do that. If you're at max CP, you can do it. But if you only have, let's say, CP 160 or CP 300, you need your points to put into Hardy and, Elemental Defender, Thick-Skinned. You need to put points into Ironclad. So, if you're lower CP, this might not be an option for you, which I think is a little bit unfortunate. What I would like to see is those damage shields raised a little bit. As far as Iceheart and Mother Ciannait, I think that 5,000, as we saw at base, that was pretty low. So I would like to see those come up a little bit. Now let me actually switch out to some other sets here because there are other damage shield sets in the game. And let me switch my staff back as well. So something that some players have mentioned is, well, you could, drop Iceheart and you could run something else like Combat Physician in place of Iceheart, because Combat Physician does have a larger damage shield. It has more of the base size that we saw with Iceheart. I think at base it's about 8,600. And then with those CP points, it's about 10,000, you can see, for 6 seconds. This set is a light armor set, comes from the, what dungeon is that? Wayrest Sewers. But this has some issues. You can see the proc chance, you can only proc this when you critically heal yourself or an ally. So you have to basically be focused around healing. Now something like Templar you would think would be pretty good at proccing this. So there it goes. And it's a sizable shield. You can see the shield size is pretty good. Of course, I do have those points into Bastion. But what you can see is it's difficult to proc, especially when I'm on my front bar. And there are a couple reasons for that. One is that your heal must critically strike. And so if I'm just doing jabs, my heals from jabs cannot critically strike. That's the way the ability works. They can never critically strike. If you look at the heal value on the right, none of those are crit strikes. So I need a secondary source of healing in order to proc Combat Physician. And not every class has that. Templar has like Ritual Retribution. This will give me a nice heal that can critically strike. So you can see once I have like Ritual running, it's going to be easier to maintain that. But again, it's not up every 6 seconds. The proc chance is a lot weaker than something like Iceheart or Ciannait. Maybe on like a Magicka Sorcerer, you could proc this with like Crit Surge, because that heal can crit. But you can see on my Templar, it's not up 100% of the time, so that is an issue. Also, the other issue is you cannot proc it when you're at 100% health. So if you combine the Combat Physician set with a secondary damage shield, that's not going to work because you're not taking damage to your health, and you cannot heal when your health is not below 100% in terms of the proc condition for the Combat Physician set. So, Combat Physician, is it a good solution? Well, on paper it looks good because it gives you a more sizable shield than Iceheart does. But in reality, with the proc condition, it's actually not very viable. So I would like to see some changes to this. I mean, you have to be focused on healing. Of course, this is a light armor set, so you're not going to be able to run this on a stamina build. And I mean, you're basically sacrificing a damage set to run this. So it should be a little bit more reliable. I would say to change this, just have it proc on any heal, not a crit heal necessarily. So the heals that you get back from Puncturing Sweep should be able to proc this. If you're on a stamina class and you cast Vigor, you should be able to proc something like this. Overall, I think the proc conditions need to change. The size, I think, is fine because, again, we're talking about a 5-piece set. We're giving up a full 5-piece bonus where we could run like New Moon Acolyte. We're missing out on so much spell damage in place of this that it should be more reliable. So there is that. The other piece, this was mentioned like in the patch notes, actually, the Brands of Imperium set. This on paper looks really, really juicy, right? This is about 15k damage shield. That's with my champion points active for 6 seconds. The effect can only occur, though, once every 15 seconds. The proc chance also is 10%, so that is a little bit low. But let's go ahead and compare that now. The Brands of Imperium damage shield set. So I think the issue that we'll see here is mostly that cooldown, right? It's up for 6 seconds and it's down for 15, so that's a 9-second cooldown. So I'm taking damage, it hasn't procced yet. Pretty sure I equipped all 5 pieces. I mean, this world boss isn't hitting me a lot. Did I equip everything? I did. There we go. All right, so it's up 3, 2, 1. It's still up. And now it's going to be down for at least 9 seconds. Okay, so it's been about 9 seconds. It should be coming back up. So first of all, we see the proc chance. 10% proc chance. I am taking damage. There we go. So it did finally proc. And you can see here, the other thing is that it does actually last the full 6 seconds. But I think the scaling here is wrong. Like, it lasts the full 6 seconds, but I still have a lot of damage shield left over after 6 seconds. It doesn't really make sense, in my opinion, to have such a strong shield. Let's watch. 4, 3, 2, 1. It's still up. I still have about 6,000 damage shield left. And then it just evaporates because the shield can only last for 6 seconds. It's basically a 6-second buff. So here it is again. 4, 3, 2, 1. Still up. And I'm losing all that damage shield. I didn't get to use it. Kind of disappointing. You can see it's on cooldown right now, so I'm just taking damage. Nothing's really happening. Still taking damage. It's not back yet. Help. Help me. Here we go. 4, 3, 2, 1. So I just lost all that damage shield. Basically, I lost that. So, you know, as far as brands of Imperium, that's not going to be great either. Of course, we are giving up a 5-piece, so that's the main thing. So the shield size, in my opinion, can be bigger when you give up a 5-piece, but this is just too much because it doesn't last. By the time you get to the 6 seconds, whatever you have left is going to be useless. So a couple things they could do on here. Now, they could increase the buff time from 6 seconds, I think, to about 10 seconds. So if they want to keep the value high, make it a 10-second damage shield, and then keep the cooldown the same. So it would be up for 10 seconds, down for 5 seconds. I think if it was up longer, then you would see the full effect of the damage shield being used. But as it is now at 6 seconds, you don't see it. The other option would be they could just reduce the size. So make it something like a 10,000 damage shield for 6 seconds. And then maybe the cooldown, maybe it could happen every 8 seconds. So up for 6 seconds, down for 2 seconds. I think that would be a lot more useful because, again, you're sacrificing an entire 5-piece set to get some type of damage shield for your build. But really, it's not working for me on that particular set. So what do I recommend in terms of these sets? First off, is Iceheart dead? I don't think it's dead completely. I think this is still usable. What I would like to see from the development team, if anybody's watching, I don't know. I'm okay with the damage nerf. I think that's fine. But the shield size at 5,000 is a little bit too low, as we saw from the testing. I'd like to see that come up just slightly, somewhere between like 5,500 and 6,000 damage shield. I think that would make it more useful for players that aren't at max CP, who can take advantage of that Bastion CP. And then if you are at max CP, you'll be able to get like about a 7,000 damage shield, which is going to be a lot more useful for you. So will I be dropping the set? No, not completely. I'll still be using it on some builds. But the way I probably will be using it is combining it with other damage shield effects. So as we saw, just the Iceheart or the Ciannait by itself, really not effective enough to be useful. But once you start combining it with, let's say, an infused damage shield enchant on your main hand, that's where you're getting into the more useful range. You're going to have over 10k damage shields about every 5 to 6 seconds, and you can take advantage of that a lot better. Of course, I always recommend the Temporal Guard ultimate on your front bar because you can get a damage shield from blocking there. So basically, you can combine this with an Iceheart shield with a damage shield enchant, and you'll get close to your full value of health still with damage shield. So that's what I would recommend. The Iceheart and Ciannait set come up slightly to about 6,000 damage shield. I think that would be fine. That wouldn't be too OP, and it would help solo players a lot more. And then those adjustments to other sets to make them viable. Things like the Brands of Imperium and the Combat Physician are very close to being useful, but they just need some minor tweaks. So those are my thoughts on the subject, at least. Now, of course, I'd love to know what you have to say in the comment section below. Do you think the Iceheart set is useless at this point, or will you still be using it on some of your builds? Let us know what you think. Of course, if you enjoyed the discussion today, don't forget to crush that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more ESO builds, guides, and discussion. And until then, I will see you around in the next video. Thanks.